She had no one, no food, no hope, until a stranger in a wheelchair did something that would change both their lives forever. I was 17, soaked to the bone, sitting alone on a city bench as rain poured like judgment from the sky. Cars hissed past, their drivers blind to me. People walked faster, tightening their umbrellas, eyes forward, not once meeting mine. I was invisible. My clothes clung to my skin. My stomach ached with hunger, and my heart felt heavier than the water seeping into my shoes. I wrapped a piece of cardboard around my shoulders, more out of ritual than warmth. I had been out here for days, but tonight felt different, colder, lonelier, final. I watched the streetlights shimmer in the puddles and thought, this is how I vanish. It started with a sound. Not footsteps. Wheels. Soft and rhythmic. I didn't look up until she spoke. Are you hungry, sweetheart? Her voice was gentle but clear. A woman in a wheelchair had stopped beside me. She held out a sandwich in a plastic wrapper. She wore a blue raincoat and had a knitted hat pulled low on her forehead. Her smile wasn't pitying. It was steady, like an anchor. I nodded. That was all I could manage. My throat was too dry for words. She handed me the sandwich. I'm Hannah, as she said. You can come with me if you want. No pressure. I stared at her, unsure if I was dreaming. But I stood up, sandwich in hand, and followed her. Hannah's apartment was nothing fancy. Small, ground floor, with soft yellow walls and a heater that clicked every few minutes. But it was warm. She showed me the bathroom and handed me clean pajamas. They were too big, but they smelled like lavender. I took a long, hot shower, the first in weeks. When I came out, she was making tea. We'll talk in the morning, she said. For now, sleep. I lay on the couch, wrapped in a heavy blanket, and listened to the sound of rain against the window. For the first time in what felt like forever, I wasn't afraid to close my eyes. In the morning, over tea and toast, I learned her story. Hannah had been a dancer, ballet, modern, even a bit of flamenco. Her eyes lit up as she spoke about it, her hands moving like they remembered the choreography. But then, the accident. A drunk driver. She showed me the scar on her spine and said, they told me I'd never walk again. But they didn't say I couldn't live. She looked at me, her gaze sharp. Everyone thinks they're broken. The trick is realizing what parts still work. After breakfast, I offered to leave. She shook her head. Do you think I picked you up for one night? She asked, amused. Then serious, you've got a mind, and you've got eyes that still dream. I want you to go back to school. My heart sank. I didn't even finish 10th grade. She smiled. Then we start there. But it's not a one-way street. I need something from you too. I frowned. Like what? You're going to help me walk again. My breath caught. She leaned forward. We help each other. Deal? I nodded. The next morning, Hannah handed me a stack of books, math, history, science, and a well-worn grammar guide. We're starting today, as she said. Her eyes held a challenge. School's back in session. I laughed nervously, unsure if my brain still worked like that. I hadn't read a full chapter of anything in months. But she sat beside me as I flipped through the pages, explaining things gently, never impatient. At noon, we switched. Your turn to teach, as she said. She placed a yoga mat on the floor and lay flat while I read instructions from a rehab manual. Together we worked through stretches, massage routines, and breathing exercises. That day was awkward and full of mistakes, but we ended it laughing. Every morning became a ritual: books, tea, and jelly toast. Hannah made it exactly the way I liked. She never said it, but I think she watched closely. In the evenings, I started keeping a journal. At first, it was just a few lines. Then full pages. I wrote about the street, my mother's voice, the day I ran. But I also wrote about Hannah. How her laugh sounded like glass wind chimes. How she never made me feel small. One night, she asked, "Can I read some?" I hesitated, then handed over a page I'd torn out. She read it silently, then said, "You're a writer. You just didn't know it." I'd forgotten how hard math could be. Fractions made me want to scream. But Hannah made it fun. She turned problems into riddles, quizzes into games. One afternoon, I solved an equation without help and let out a cheer. Hannah clapped like I'd won gold. We made a paper chain from every page I completed. It hung from the ceiling, growing longer each week. But every night, I'd see her in quiet pain, massaging her legs, her jaw clenched. "We'll get there," I'd whisper when she thought I wasn't looking. And each time, she whispered back, "I know." Not every day was a triumph. Some mornings I couldn't focus. The weight of my past would crawl back, whispering that I didn't belong here. That I'd always be the girl on the bench. One night, I cried in the kitchen. Hannah found me and just sat there, holding my hand. "We all carry shadows," she said. "But you've got light too. I see it every time you look up and try again." I didn't reply. I just squeezed her hand tighter. That was enough. One morning, while adjusting her wheelchair near the bookshelf, Hannah misjudged and hit the wall. Hard. Her favorite vase shattered. She didn't cry. She didn't shout. But I saw it in her eyes. Rage, frustration, helplessness. I cleaned up in silence. "That night," she said, "sometimes I hate needing help." I looked at her, voice steady. "You help me every single day. Let me do the same." She smiled through watery eyes. "Deal." Hannah surprised me the next week. "I want to go back to the dance studio," she said. I stared at her, unsure. "It's time," as she nodded. The building was old, but still standing. Dust clung to the mirrors like memories. She wheeled herself to the center, staring at her reflection. Then she asked, "Play something for me." I used my phone to pull up an old piano piece. As it played, Hannah moved, arms, shoulders, hands, just like she used to. I could almost see the dancer she had been. And for a moment, so could she. That visit changed everything. She started pushing herself harder, stretching more, doing resistance bands longer. I adjusted the routines. Read more, watched tutorials. One afternoon, while holding onto the kitchen counter, she lifted herself a few inches. I felt it, as she whispered. I nodded, eyes wide. It wasn't much, but it was movement. We marked it on the calendar with a red star. The first of many. Progress slowed. A fall in the hallway bruised Hannah's ribs and her pride. She snapped at me, said I was pushing too hard. I yelled back. We didn't talk for 2 days. Then, one night, she rolled into my room and said, I'm sorry. I cried into her shoulder. I just want you to stand again. She kissed my forehead. And I will. Because of you. We stopped talking about miracles and started counting seconds. Seconds she could hold herself upright. Seconds her knees didn't wobble. She learned how to fall safely. How to breathe through pain. I learned how to listen without trying to fix everything. We were becoming something new. Not just survivor and caregiver, but teammates. I enrolled in online school. Hannah helped with essays, tested me on vocab. I passed my first exam and we celebrated with popcorn and an old dance movie. For the first time, I let myself imagine a future. Not just survival, but purpose. Hannah said, you're becoming who you were always meant to be. I didn't believe her. Not fully. But part of me wanted to. A letter arrived, my GED testing date. I was terrified. Hannah made me pancakes shaped like stars and stuck post-its all over the fridge with motivational quotes. You're not failing, a one said, you're learning. I studied harder than ever. And when test day came, she wheeled in beside me, gave my hand a squeeze, and whispered, and now show them what you're made of. The weeks that followed were intense. We juggled school and therapy like a two-person circus. I aced my GED. Hannah managed to stand for 20 seconds. Our fridge turned into a wall of goals. Our mornings became mini celebrations of progress. We still had bad days, days when she collapsed or when I wanted to give up. But we always came back. Always. On the anniversary of the day she found me, I gave Hannah a painting, a simple sketch of two women walking together, one holding the other up. She cried when she saw it. That's us, she said. Someday, I replied. We'll get there. She nodded. Someday. 3 months later, we returned to the dance studio. This time, with crutches. Hannah stood in front of the mirror. I held her hand as she took one step. Just one. But it was enough. We both cried. Then laughed. We'll call this a standing ovation, as she joked. From that day, it got easier. Not easy, never easy, but forward. One step turned into 2. Then 5. Then 10. She fell sometimes. Cursed often. But she walked. I started volunteering at a literacy center. Helped girls who reminded me of myself. Hannah said, you're becoming a light for others. And for the first time, I believed her. I applied for college. wrote an essay titled The Woman Who Taught Me to Walk. It wasn't about me, it was about her. I got accepted. We screamed, danced, ordered pizza. I thought about how far I'd come, how far we both had. One evening, after a long walk in the park, Hannah said, "I don't need you anymore." My chest tightened. But then she smiled. "I want you to live, to fly. You helped me stand. Now it's your turn." I nodded, fighting tears. "Only if you promise to keep dancing." She helped me pack for college. We laughed at old photos, cried over letters. The day I left, she stood by the door, unaided. "Go," as she said, "and make me proud." I hugged her tight. Always. College was hard. New people, new fears. But I carried Hannah with me, in every brave answer, every paper I turned in. I taped her quote to my wall, "You're not failing. You're learning." I visited her that winter. She walked to greet me. No chair. Just her and a cane. "You kept your promise," I whispered. She smiled. "So did you." She choreographed a show for local dancers. I wrote the narration. The crowd rose to their feet at the end. I watched her bow, tears in my eyes. She brought home a girl. Young, cold, alone. "She reminds me of someone," Hannah said. I nodded. "Let's teach her to walk, too." I published my journal. Called it Still Standing. She danced at the launch party. Together, we told our story. We still walk every morning. Some days fast, some days slow. But always forward. Always together. She helped me stand when I was broken. And I helped her walk when the world told her she never would. Two women. One story. Forever changed.